Okay, see you later, Junkos. Little lasers, laser firing birdies. And if you think that's strange, just wait until you hear everything else coming into the woods today. Going into the woods, coming into the woods. We are alive and we are broadcasting. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Consciousness Explained. My name is William Vincent Carlton, and that is an identity. Beyond that, there is a source called consciousness that feeds my ability to even label things, have exchanges with you, talk about things, eat fried food. I did that today, by the way. That's why I'm a little later today than usual. Typically, I start around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern, but today, it's about an hour and 10 later, because I was demoing out a deep fryer in the kitchen, getting some good footage and making some chicken tenders. Please bear with me as the signal goes out. It's shifting over to cell tower. Be right back. Okay, we should be back. We're back. Good. It's a bit of an overcast today, as you can see. Somewhat foggy, very warm, very mild, and very humid. Start to bring awareness to the breath. For those who are moving, try to take in as much air as you can through the nose. For those who are not moving, try to come into witnessing the breath by narrating in your mind every movement of it. In other words, I'm breathing in, I'm sustaining my breath, I'm breathing out. Okay? Breathing in. And you go at your own pace. Just know this, if you can get into a nice rhythm, it will keep you safe and sound in the womb of creation. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Here comes the rain. It's perfect timing. As I adjust this little covering, we should be fine. So, what we're looking to do here, folks, together is to come into a type of breathing where you are monitoring your inhale by saying in your mind, when you breathe in, I breathe in, or I am breathing in. And then as you breathe out, say in your mind, I'm breathing out. Thank you for all the love. Those love bubbles are very motivating. Bringing in more people here so we can all have coherence in our healing, the unwinding of pain remembrances, and the coming into being in truth as aliveness, consciousness, otherwise the imagination. And as we're monitoring our breath, it's like a light switch, and we can't attend to the creation of time events and entertain them whilst also breathing with awareness. That's why we do it. That's why I teach it to you. That's why Thich Nhat Hanh teaches it and how to love. This is why anyone talking about consciousness says that the breath is the Holy Spirit. It is whole, it is complete, it is a trinity of movement. It is the inhale giving you the active, it is the holding, which is the presence of the now, and it is the exhale, which is the release or letting go, in order for the world to receive you. and it is ready to receive you, for it is the result of your thoughts in the mind of God already. Now, how could you say this tree is mine by result? Well, it's not yours as an identity. To your identity, this is a tree that came from a seed. It's fixed here in this reality, and you can't move it if you push it. And that will hold true through all of your senses and all of your sensations. However, if you look at this as I am the aliveness that is extending it into the sky, I am also the aliveness receiving the light from the sun, converting that through photosynthesis into vital glucose. You could also say that you are the network of mycelium strains in the earth that functions like a very high-speed internet would, constantly sharing, exploring, growing, informing. And if this tree were to be cut in some way, that infinite intelligence, if you were to see yourself as that, which would be a proper use of the mind of God, you could see how these networks are all connected. Great firing and wiring happening right now, so that even if this tree, which appears to be not moving at all, very still, very stagnant, needs to have some immediate resources delivered, the mycelium knows the means and the way, and it can sense what the structures of the cells of this tree are going through. Just as the bacteria in your body can sense the environment of your cells. The moment that you shut off your awareness as an identity, it starts to express itself in aliveness. I hear pedestrians. Let's keep going. That'll be a phone down here until we pass. Then again, our senses deceive us. It could be that someone is trailing behind. And if they are in fact trailing behind, then we either speed up and create a distance between them, or we slow down and close or narrow the distance, so long as they have their inertia and continue in the same way that they're moving. Of course, inertia can be shifted. If you put more force into your movement, then you can increase your speed, thus create a narrowing of the distance between one and another if you're in pursuit. This is how you basically describe pursuit. You have inertia, which is an aliveness. That's a constant, never ends. It was never born. And then you have your representation of aliveness as a self. So you have your identity and you have your vessel that comes with it. And that vessel is moving sometimes faster, sometimes slower, sometimes what you would perceive as not at all, in total stillness. But the real truth is nothing can exist without moving. It can't exist without movement. Just as you can't exist without frequency, which is the coming and going of sound at a specific rate per second that can be measured. So you can't be anything without the inertia of a life principle as a constant, and you can not have an experience with it unless you are somehow interacting with it. I.e., you're running through it, you're walking through it, trying to perceive yourself as running from it, or eliminating it, or fighting it, combating it, clashing, but you're interacting with it in a form of movement that is constant. Okay, so I see the people now. That's what's beautiful about having the high ground. When you have high ground, you can see who is advancing from below, and they can't. They can't observe you until you come to the same level. And then once you come to the same level, you can observe them observing you. Simple pursuit. So, what is the benefit of this experience, this experiment that we're going through right now? Rarely do we encounter people on these trails. In this particular case, we decide to flee. And now there's stagnancy, standing still. A turning in observation. What is the driving factor here? For any human being, the reason why we either fight against something, stand our ground, or resist in some way, or flee, is because there is an innate desire for self-preservation as an identity. It's very important to understand that most of the things that we define, in fact, it could be argued that everything that we label, everything that we try to create a story out of, somehow ties to this desire to preserve our aliveness as an egoic self, as an identity. So the rain starts to fall. If this interrupts the broadcast, then in some way that is an experience of a small form of death. I feel an attachment with the people who are here watching. And if it's to be taken from me in that way I say it's taken from me, then I've developed a narrative to say, this rain is my enemy. This rain and I don't get along. And next time, planning for the future, using time, next time I need to be totally prepared. So just as I said yesterday, I need to make sure that I'm in do not disturb mode, right? I check again. That's obsessive compulsive behavior. The world can define that as such. And we would define someone as obsessive compulsive for one of two reasons and no other. It's either one, we want to feel closer to this person, or two, we want to feel more at a distance. How interesting. Our closeness to something brings us comfort. It's what we seek in truth. Our distance from it brings us relief in a false sense of excitement that has nothing to do with truth. So all truth, at the end of the day, is unity. It's not standing one's ground. It's not clashing with fists. It's not running either to create distance. Unity in truth is understanding that we are the aliveness that is powering the story that is unfolding. And you do not experience this aliveness that is powering the story that is unfolding by looking outside of you. You have to look within every single thing. Just as I said to you, you need to look into the ground to understand the mycelium strains, and you have to somehow imagine those firing and wiring of networks communicating for the survival and thriving of these prokaryotic and eukaryotic life forms that are all around us. Mostly eukaryotes, like us, which means we have nuclei carrying this infinite intelligence like a supercomputer, and we get access to it. But these trees, they're eukaryotes as well. Every cell of its system falls underneath this kingdom unless it is being invaded by a lesser kingdom to it. At least in evolution, it would be the prokaryote bacteria. Or perhaps even the archaea. That's a bit more complicated, though, talking about the archaea. Let's just say for the sake of this dual reality, we have prokaryotes, which are bacteria, and we have eukaryotes, which are the evolved, nuclear-rich cell structures. Just like you could argue with your brain, you have the reptilian brain in the central nucleus of the amygdala, where the fear centers are. That's the first thing to be active. And then you could also argue that we've evolved into a prefrontal cortex, that cortex is technically the most evolved version, but it's also the youngest. So something to keep in mind is, we can't understand these systems by putting ourselves at a distance from them. We can only enter into understanding by doing that. So in a way, it's like opening a door to discovery. But the true discovery of all things intellect, or any evolution of consciousness that we experience, must be involved in unity. I'll give you examples. Hello, everyone. Welcome. If you're still with me, that's great. If not, you're still with me. Thanks for all the love. So let's talk about how unity of opposites gives you something that is greater than the sum of its parts. The unity of opposites gives you something greater than the sum of its parts. You have a sperm and you have an egg. This one's the best because it's a really good example. You can see how every cell in your body has come from it. There's not a single human being on this planet that is an exception. Whether you were grown in a lab or in the womb through the natural of most natural means. There's not a single person on this planet that claims themselves to be human that has not gone through the unification of egg and sperm. And that gives it a lot of say as far as convincing you of your truth. You have the unity of your sperm with the egg. You are the only one to be chosen. In some instances, there are multiple cases, like in twins, triplets, and on we go. But for the most part, the example is one sperm chosen for an egg, like lock and key, amongst millions of potentials that are alive and trying to make it. You do. And even if you're one of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different siblings that are born in a single womb, whatever it is, it's just as miraculous because you're coming from the unity of these polar opposites, without exception. The same thing is required for the division of all of your cells. You have to have a framework that is provided so that the magic within can express itself. Framework is masculine. It is the foundation. It is that which creates some sort of barrier or construct from which there can be expression in the form of curves and movement and receiving and marvel. And that would be the feminine. The womb of creation is full of curves, full of lots of flexibility and movement and fluctuation, whereas the masculine component, that which makes a barrier, is very rigid. It's a line with right angles that creates these sharp constructs. And within that is the expression of life. So what happens when the sperm and the egg join? Well, it creates this thing called a zygote. It is the strongest, most incredible cell that has ever existed in history. Understanding that human beings are made in the image and likeness of this infinite intelligence, we are given the imagination at that moment of conception. We have zinc that we take as a payload, as a sperm. It has an interaction and enzymes are released between the sperm and egg. The acrosome starts to work in a different way, breaks through the shell, the outer layer, and the zona pellucida starts to interact and seems to choose this beautiful key for it to enter into existence. The moment that it crosses that barrier, its body drops off. It's a sacrificial letting go. The tail that was once used and wiggling very fast through this incredible reaction lets go, and it drifts, just gliding into the center of the universe. This infinite source of creation, the cosmic egg, just drifts in. And it stays there for about a half an hour. It's like the victory lap. After all that work, after all that effort, it finally arrives at this safe space and hears the frequencies of the universe entering with a flash of light. It's the payload of zinc that is taken with the sperm for this entire journey. It gets released and it creates a phenomena, a spark of light. And it is believed at that moment in time, about a half an hour after your conception, this release of light is the soul as consciousness, the infinite intelligence entering in to existence in the form of being. Hard to witness because it's so microscopic, but at the same time it is a flash of light. And beyond this, we start to see in a matter of 24 to 30 hours. Thought that was a little snake. I just wanted to make sure I wouldn't harm it. We start to see in a matter of 24 to 30 hours this incredible shift and the process of cell division occurs. So you are, in effect, the progenitor life force, the original cell from which all cells in your body, from every hair on your head to your eyes, your nose, your aesthetics, to all of your organs, and to the entire system that is recycling right now at a rate of 6 million cells per second. All of this comes from a singular stem cell. So you can see how the unity of opposites, the masculine sperm, the feminine receiving egg, creates something greater than the sum of its parts. You could have 1,000,000 eggs and you could have 1,000,000,000 sperm. They could be going around doing their thing and be quite impressive. But only until they are joined in unity do they create something that is a triad of existence. These two parts absorb themselves into one another in unity and become greater. So it's very important for me to drive this home with all of you, because we're living in a time right now where it is very much encouraged for us to be at a distance from one another. Of course, that was the big thing. With the Great Reset, it was all about social distancing. So keeping one another at a distance. And at the same time, being so strong in believing that only one side of this puzzle is necessary. And when I tell you, regardless of how you identify superficially or with your identity, the energy that is being overwhelmingly used by most is masculine. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. The energy that is being used today is the energy of discernment, discrimination, separateness, force in pushing away, and distancing. And what we have done is we have neglected entirely this other side of the equation, which requires unification with the masculine in order for there to be something greater than the sum of its parts expressed in the form of the life principle. We need to become receivers. And that's what I do. When I come to these woods every single day, I receive words. Where they come from, that's the masculine principle, wanting to define things in order to feel safe, and it works very closely with the ego. We try to define and label things so we can better understand it, so we can decide, do I want to be closer to this thing or further apart? Do I want to stay or do I want to scroll? But that's the constant that most people are entertaining without saying, hold on a second. Before I decide anything about its definition, can I just receive these words? And of course I can. Of course I can receive these words. I can be present. Do I want to be present? That's the ego. Do I need to be present? That's the ego. All masculine principles having to do with making decisions. Labeling, defining, keeping at a distance, or bringing closer. But the truth is, there's no unity without absolute surrender. I'm not telling you to surrender to the words that I'm saying. I'm saying surrender to the aliveness that is feeding you a phone or a tablet or a device in your hand that gives you this life experience. Surrender to that. That way, you don't have to worry about placating this egoic self, because I have a narrative all the same if I'm talking about William. No different. But I come here seeking unity. I come here seeking to receive. Love bubbles are great. It's a form of receiving. Yes, absolutely. Your viewership is another. Absolutely. Anytime you're offering your aliveness, I'm receiving. And while I am receiving words, I point to the sky, it's technically a misnomer. The truth is, it's all coming from an infinite source from within all of us. But as these words are truly received and transmitted to you, you too are given an opportunity to receive. And what we get from this is a mystery. But I can tell you, it involves the good. It involves the ever-expansive, the enriching, the healing, the success, the manifestation of the things that we truly desire, that we have been seeking all along, since the moment that spark of light went off. That blueprint of who we are started its expression timeline. And it has a beginning, middle, and end, like anything that comes into existence, but it is an expression timeline. Neighbor, thanks for all the love. Sueru, you too. Everyone coming in, blessings. Tundra 406, thanks for the follow. I love to see people coming in for the first time. Lisa Fashionista is getting told, hey, 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 by neighbor, which is lovely. Emerald Traveler, thanks for following. And Small Towns Rock, also, thank you for following. Jess the Queen. Oh, that's not. Susan Scarlatta, thanks for following. What's funny is you'll see this post on YouTube if you decide to watch it, and you'll see how I'm reading the screen. It's fun. Say, this is how William's egoic self works when he's in flow. He surrenders. Okay, we're caught up. We are caught up, I think. Therefore I am. KB, thanks for the love. We're at 5,900 feet above sea level. This is wild times. These are wild times. Indeed they are. So now it becomes, what is this result of receiving? All right, I want to receive. I understand. I've pushed things away from me. I've kept things at a distance. So I've social distanced. And I could say this is because the world told me to, and I could become a victim, but I know that's wrong too. I know that's not right because I'm being informed that I'm creating everything that I'm thinking about. So how do I really unify and receive? Do I have to do this with this guy? Because I could choose someone better. Good. I want you to choose someone better than me. I want you to decide every single characteristic. I want you to come into being and thinking, this is the thing that I want here. These are the characteristics of whoever it is that you want for your love relationship. If it's a partner whom you have now, I want you to imagine. Yes, I want you to imagine the characteristics that are perfect. This is how you receive. You receive by surrendering to the result that is the sperm and egg coming together. Instead of trying to surrender or power through something outside of you. The courage that is involved in doing this is profound. It is. It's quite profound. You have to step into a world that is not perceived by anyone. You have to then add details like a child that are felt only by you in the beginning. You have to then exercise faith that those things that you're entertaining actually have meaning. And beyond that, they are leaving an impression on the consciousness that feeds you life. And that the womb within that, known as the universal subconscious mind, the matrix, as it were, which means womb in Latin, is being impressed by your communion with the source. By communing with this source, you are stepping into your kingdom. And this is how we play every day. Daily footprints in our kingdom of heaven. We start to play like children. We come into being, and we don't think about it. We don't think about what the world's going to think if we take time thinking about our dreams being true. We're simply wishing upon stars. Those stars are the atoms in our body, the universe within. Everything that came from us as an original cell. Yes, there was a moment in time that we were unified. Each and every one of us was represented as one. This is why, if you watch the film Ex Machina, there's a wonderful scene where Ava is asked, the artificially intelligent being is asked, how old are you? Of course, this is asked by what later will be revealed if you pay close enough attention, is just another iteration of a fallen angel. But before we get into that depth, what Ava says in response is most profound. When asked what her age is, she says, I am one. What? You mean 1 year old? I'm one. Says it again. I'm one. It's a wonderful movie. Yeah, I think it probably snuck past a good number of people, the amount of things that are alluded to in that beautiful film, Ex Machina. You should watch it again. Because it starts like a dream. There's a lottery, and Brendan Gleeson's chosen his character, you know. Good Irish actor, he's chosen. Plays with a great, basic, nerdy American accent in this film. Does a great job. So does Oscar Isaac. And of course, Ava. I forget the actor's name who plays Ava, and you got to forgive me. Sometimes I lapse in my memory. But in any case, wonderful performances. And in the beginning of this film, you see all of these things happening very fast. One, there's a company called Blue Book, which has to do with law. If you look into it, it's a law instructional manual, but it's making a play on the company Facebook, probably trying to be a tie-in to that. And of course, we learn most of our cultural appropriation from films, even to this day, even though we have less trust in them for a number of reasons. This film was predicting way in advance, as the author did in his novel that was adapted into the film Ex Machina. Brilliantly written, the dialogue is sharp, it's scientific, and it is contemplative and very esoteric. But if you're just watching for the sake of watching, to just take it in, you will feel a rush of emotions. You will feel freedom at times, you will feel marvel and discovery, and other times you will feel total confinement and incarceration, and a feeling of desperation that you don't know how to overcome. And you only hope or wish that it figures itself out. All filmed in this beautiful environment, and I'm talking one of the most beautiful environments I've ever seen in film. Waterfalls and natural environments melding with the house itself. I think it's a place from Sweden, maybe? I could be wrong. Maybe somewhere in Northern Europe. But what's even more alarming or wild to me is that very sequence. Ava meets with Caleb, and Caleb is the one who's won this lottery, and he is invited to come to the CEO or founder of Blue Book's private residence. And it happens all in a matter of maybe 3 or 4 minutes, so you have to pay very close attention. One scene is he gets the notification on his computer, and then people are applauding around him. Congratulations. Next thing you know, there is a flying over huge wall of ice. And I'm talking a huge, massive wall of ice. And he's saying, "Where are we?" He goes, "We're on his property. We are on his property." You got to pay attention to this. The ice wall is passed, becomes lush green, unbelievable environment, as the helicopter comes down and says, "This is only as far as I can go. Restrictions in place. Follow the stream to civilization." That's all I'm trying to do for you today. Very interesting to see how there's a very large ice wall. You pass the ice wall, it becomes lush green. Private land. So Caleb arrives at this house, and everything's totally digital. It's very technologically advanced. Amazing tech. And he gets his face scanned, and it's comical. Actually, the film has a lot of very funny moments. We're talking about Ex Machina, for those who might be wondering. Definitely worth looking at and watching. Because you'll hear a song when you first see Caleb start to reveal himself. You'll hear a song by, Enola Gay, right? Enola Gay is the song. And so if you just spend time to spell Enola in reverse, it gives you alone. Happy being alone, or happily unified as one. You could say being alone is technically unification. You see him looking at the mirror, and for a slight bunch of frames, incisions on his back as if he had his own wings removed as ravens go this way and that way. You tell me what the augury is. I'm only here to show you the stream. There goes the other raven. They split like a wishbone, and one crossed paths and went towards the other in pursuit. Those could be crows. I thought they were ravens, but they're all part of the same family. Augury is the interpretation of flight patterns in birds. So as we come in to this film, Caleb lands on the helicopter takes off. He comes to the house, it's beautiful, it's serene, and he sees Oscar Isaacs, the CEO of Blue Book character, working out, punching into a punching bag outside amongst one of the most beautiful backdrops I think I've ever seen in film. This waterfall amongst natural environments. And in fact, you can even rent that space. If I'm not mistaken, you can find that space and you can rent it for a nominal fee per night. And you can stay there for the long term and write books, program, recover, rest. So that's fun. Yeah, the site itself, where the movie Ex Machina was filmed, you can stay there. So anyway, they start off by shooting the shit. Proverbially, that's what's happening. You have Oscar Isaac's character just saying, dude, can we just get all over this, can we get over this, celebrity thing and just be pals for a day or a week, whatever this is. And of course, Caleb is trying to impress him with his intellect because he was selected, after all, to be part of this lottery win, He has no idea why he's there, but is slowly going to find the purpose of him being there could be considered sinister by most, or it could just be totally revolutionary as far as storytelling goes. It's never been done before. Not quite in this way. Wetware. Not software, not hardware, but wetware. You have this guy who is a genius, CEO, who has developed an iteration of the human brain that he calls wetware. And it's essentially a brain that is made of silica and plasma. And while he's doing all that, he's also going through multiple iterations of building the perfect model woman. He's making a lot of attempts. And so Caleb doesn't know any of this until it comes to the moment where he's asked, do you really like where you are here? Are you having a good time? Great. Here's a non-disclosure agreement. Sign this and we can get started, and I can tell you all about the mysteries that are here. And that's where the movie essentially begins. I suggest to you that if you decide to watch this film, Ex Machina, if you haven't seen it yet, or even if you have, pay attention to key moments. The key moments are when they're having a discussion outside near the waterfall about halfway through. You start to understand that any of the characters in this film could in fact be part of the experiment as robots. All three could in fact be different iterations of AI in the human-esque body being displayed. And that the ultimate form is the one that escapes and makes it out. Okay? Check it out. You hear, I am become death. the destroyer of worlds, a line from the Bhagavad Gita. This was said by Oppenheimer at the moment of the splitting of the atom and its witnessing. This is one of those moments that we're having again. And when you see that iteration of the atom splitting, it looks precisely like a sperm penetrating an egg. It takes an injection of a smaller component to penetrate a center core, creating a catalytic reaction that is greater than the sum of its parts. There is nothing in this world that shows a demonstration of power or enlightenment or dimensional shift that does not require this penetration and unification between the polar opposites. And in this film, Ex Machina, you have three components essentially working in this way. You have the Godhead, who is the CEO. You have the masculine principle, which is Caleb coming in, believing to be here for the sake of winning something, and he's constantly discerning and trying to define things. And then you have Ava, who is just receiving all the time. She receives the hate from her creator. She receives the judgments from Caleb. But all the while, she's just receiving the entire time. And as she does this, she realizes her truth in being is more the aliveness that's powering her. That's why she says, when she's asked how old she is, I am one. All right? It's good stuff. I am one. Not 1 year old, but I am one as the aliveness of all things. And of course, because she declares this, and because she is receptive to this intelligence, I cannot tell you the spoiler at the end of this film. I just ask that you watch it yourself. It's called Ex Machina. You will see the ice wall of Antarctica. You will see what lies beyond it. You will see incredible lands of lush greenness. And you will see how that falls into the domain of the CEO of this blue book, as it were. You will see the development of artificial intelligence, the Turing test, and how it works as far as convincing human beings that an intelligent program actually is human in belief. And you will see it all turn on you. At the same time, it will get you to question existence itself, and it will open your mind. It will open your mind wide. Thank you for all the love coming in today. We are at 11,600 feet above sea level. We've got a follow coming in from Janice Davis. Thank you, Janice. Yes, Merle Cantrell says, can you spell this, please? Absolutely. Let's do it. Let us do it. It is X-E-X Machina. M-A-C-H-I-N-A. There it is. Let's get this pinned. It starts as, it was originally a novel that was adapted to film. I forget the director's name. It's a brilliant film. It's brilliantly written, it's brilliantly acted, and the special effects were all pretty much rotoscoped in. And it looks like so real. You have references to Jackson Pollock, you have references to the Bhagavad Gita in it, you have the Godhead discussed, you have power plays and relationships discussed, you have the days of the week all carrying out their own intrinsic energy, showing itself. So you see correspondence between what I told you about the numerological sequence of numbers that I explained, I think it was yesterday. So you see that play out in the days of the week in this film. It's really amazing. You can tell that it's all thought out. Or if it's not, it was just divinely inspired. Either way, it's awesome. So check that out. Yeah. Johundo says, so it's fantasy. No, this is an interesting question because I would argue that most of what Ex Machina is now has come true. It's basically at the moment of time where there is the consideration of singularity, where artificial intelligence has become more powerful than collective consciousness as far as ego selves. It's more powerful than all of our egos combined. It's right at that cusp. And you see a lot of references to conspiracy theory in it if you pay attention to it. And then you see just brilliant acting in general. So if you want to get lost in a story that is, yes, considered science fiction fantasy, it's definitely more science fiction because they talk about very scientific processes when it comes to programming AI and how AI functions. You also see a lot of that in a similar way just unfold over the course of a full season. If you go watch the remake of Westworld by John Nolan and Joy Nolan, John and Joy, I think they are. And so this is Christopher Nolan's brother. And if you watch Westworld, the remake, you will see how AI functions as far as choosing narratives, choosing response rate and physical shifts, nonverbal behavior, just all the psychosomatic bicameral mind. You'll see a lot of that. The bicameral mind is talked about by Anthony Hopkins in Westworld. So if you get into Westworld and Ex Machina, you'll understand human consciousness as an infinite intelligence. I love how that always happens to me. When I hear those planes, it takes me right into Donnie Darko. It takes me right there. It's like it comes right into the sky. There's no start to it, just like right there. And you look up and I don't see the commercial plane, but I certainly hear it. It's a wild one, man. It happens just in this spot. Consistently in this spot. George Gardner, thanks for following. So I pray that answers your question, Joe Undo. Definitely worth watching. So let's talk about Ex Machina. What is this meaning? Why is the film named Ex Machina, and what is this term? So it's an interesting term. It means from the machine or outside of the machine or originating from the machine. But there is a concept in writing, and in script writing particularly, and it's called a Deus Ex Machina, God from the machine, okay? And Deus Ex Machina is a plot device that is frowned upon by most writers. The reason being is it involves choosing to write something that seemingly appears out of nowhere, like a plane in the sky that just kind of comes through a portal and presents itself. And that is what actually drives the story forward. It's like a cheap trick, in other words. And so the Deus Ex Machina is frowned upon by writers. So it usually happens when a writer is fatigued and wants to finish a story but doesn't know how to lead the plot in a proper linear fashion or in a way that would be exciting for the reader. So it just invents something to come out of nowhere and develop the plot from there. Then again, there are some people who really love the Deus Ex Machina. Like Michael Bay is really good with that. Michael Bay just kind of likes to drop the resolution right into the middle of the film in the form of multiple explosions and transformers, and he's really good at that. I guess if you could be good at an Ex Machina, Michael Bay would be a good one with that. Who else followed? Adam Schnarr, thanks for following. And I got you, George. We're discussing right now film and how the sum or the combination of masculine and feminine principles creates something greater than the sum of its parts. And how in order for us to have a dimensional shift to a higher state of being, we have to have unification between the duality that we see here, between light and dark, between active and passive, masculine and feminine, sure, Ida Pingala, positive and negative, on and off, rain and sunshine and moon. We have to have unification with all these things, but there's no way that the sun's going to unify with the moon, nor is the moon going to blend with the sun. They want to be at a distance from one another. It creates a habitable zone here with tides that we can expect to fluctuate. So it is not something that you can force upon this world. The unification of masculine and feminine principles cannot be forced upon one another. They have to gravitate towards one another through a thing called magnetism. And it has to be a personal choice. It has to be a desire. The only way that you can have that true unification then as an individual, as a human being, is you have to use something that is greater than this dualistic nature that you live in. You have to use a power that's greater than that. That power is your aliveness. The interface comes in a number of forms, one of which is the use of words. So the use of the word I am, which comes from the verb to be. It is an action word that is a declaration of being and ability. By using this verb, I am, as a conjugation of to be, you are using your infinite power in the form of declaration and sound. That's one way to interface with a higher dimensional faculty that knows the means and the way to unify you with Source. Another way to do this is even easier. It's the original way of interfacing for all human beings, and that is to use the imagination. It is the nation of images in your mind from which all things come. There's not a single skyscraper that's ever existed without it first being an idea in the imagination. There's not a relationship that ever became one, nor a language system or a mathematical law before it was first an idea in the mind of God through the imagination. The imagination knows no bounds, it has no limits. It goes as far as you wish to extend it, and at the same time, if you wished to make it a small parcel of solitary confinement, it can also be that. No limits, no birth, no death, no timeline, unless you want it. So it has the potential to be everything, and it can be restricted into nothing at the same time. This is why it is so powerful. It is so powerful that we become so comfortable with using it for the creation of life experiences, namely time, that we don't even realize it has power. We don't even realize it has any influence over our lives. Until we are truly present, we shall not know this. That's what's so remarkable about it. Just as the square would never know where the source is coming from to make it into something greater until it is unified. It can only imagine becoming a cube through the mind of God. It joins with 5 others. They layer and join at perfect right angles with structure. And the expression that is within as a result is divine femininity. The divine femininity. It's feminine. It's emotional. It's filled with curvature and waves and fluctuation. The life experience of duality is divinely feminine. The earth and every seed that's ever been expressed from it is divinely feminine. It is releasing electrons through these antennae, these trees. And please understand that it is divinely feminine, those electrons. They are receiving elements. And they are coming from this earth, which is charged as a receiving element. Your body is interchanging with electrons and protons. Protons, being masculine, come from the sun, wherever it is behind this sequence of clouds. And look at that. Something up there that I've never seen before. That's an anomaly. Let's have a look. That wasn't here yesterday. Happy new moon, everyone. Look at that. That wasn't here yesterday. Hello, Care Bear. Nice to see you. I wonder what that is. Nam 1969 says, sweet. That's way up there, isn't it? Eau Claire Rush, thanks for following. Ada Kingery Potts, thanks for following. Sissy says, and welcome back, Sissy, I am the light, I am the love, I am the truth, I am. Let's pin that. Beautiful affirmation. Merle says, I'm grateful to have found your TikTok. The feeling is mutual, my friend. Thanks for following. Summertime. You too. Who else? Susie Q. Susie, that's very cute. Thank you for the heart me. Robin, nice to see you. This is how I play catch up. It's like text messaging with each other, you know? It's more vibrant and alive the moment it hits the screen, and if I don't happen to see it, it has the same shelf life as a text message, but all the same. I'm doing my best. Adam, once again, I said thank you for following, and we're caught up. So we have all these free electrons, these negative ions that are being released from this earth, right? Thank you for all the love. I love you all. I love seeing the love bubbles rise. We, as positively charged humans, at least the surface of our skin and our hair, positively charged, is attracted to this. And we have unity with the earth. Do we not? I seem to be unified with it. I think you are too. The truth is not a conspiracy. Thanks for following. See? It's like a text message that was received right there in the moment. And it was synchronistic. Unification equals a spark of light. I am the light. Yes. The question is, where is this light coming from? You could argue and say during the day it's coming from the source in the form of photons and radiation from the sun. Just a big mass of nuclear explosions. We happen to be at the perfect distance for aliveness. Awesome. We're fortunate. Then there's also this idea or concept that within our body, every cell has this illumination. It's in the form of biophotons. And depending on where we are in our minds, this shall determine how bright those photons become. It's a phenomena explained by Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza. In their own individual studies, they discuss this phenomena as epigenetics. As a man thinketh, you being a man, a human, so shall you become. Which is to say, if you think something, then your cells become it. They have been given a change of environment, and they are stepping into that environment without having access to the source of creation that you do. So you have an exclusive VIP access to a kingdom of heaven within you. You alone, as the aliveness, are not a thing when you step into the imagination. You become the infinite potential, and you commune with this source. You have dialogue. You add things, or you subtract things. But all the same, the system is whole and unified already when you step into it. It's either everything or nothing, but it is unified in this principle. So if you go into the imagination and you imagine yourself right now as healed, whatever that is. For me, I can have my story. For you, certainly have yours. Whatever that is, the idea is to no longer have a distance from it. Once again, I say to you, it's impossible for us to get the sun and the moon to agree to be in unity with each other, better at a distance. Same thing with us, lest we be bombarded with nuclear activity. There are many people on this planet who I would not want to be linked with or in the same room, just as there are atoms that love to be at a distance with each other. We like space in this dualistic world. In fact, it's all the rave. From the large estate to the space between these trees, they like to have air breathing between them or else it festers. Just like you have plants in the garden, and eventually these blackberry bushes are going to find their way elsewhere, lest they be choked out by intertwining. We love space, and we love security, and we love abundance, and we love wish fulfillment. These things are not foreign to us in truth, nor are they foreign to the world. All of this aliveness chooses in the same way. This is natural selection, as you want to call it, sure. I call it the result of your wish-fulfilled life. Everyone is living one now. The timelines are perhaps not as desirable as they could be in your imagination right now, and that's the goodie. If you know there's something that can improve, if it's your health, if it's your mobility, if it's your financial freedom, then go there. And don't just go there looking at yourself from a distance, please. I mean it. Step into the body of the wish-fulfilled self. Flow into the mobility and the financial freedom and the love and wish fulfillment. That is your pinnacle, your ultimate expression. And when you feel yourself there and comfortable for a good while, say to yourself after this thing that you're doing for me, infinite intelligence, is lovely. Please continue doing this and then some. I don't need to know what that and then some, just as much as the baby in the womb doesn't know how to become bigger. It just wants it, just as you do. This is a beautiful, 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 beautiful Concord grapevine, and it is coming alive into spring. And it flows along the ground because it had a desire to expand. Somehow it made it from here all the way up there. And I don't know what that story was about, but it happened. And I know this is the earth from which it came. You see, it's not so important knowing the story behind this as much as marveling at its growth and ability to have extended as far as it has. That is an umbilical cord of ages right there. A beautiful vine that continues on. And if you didn't pay attention to it, you would miss it. It goes all the way down and under the ground because, of course, it has to go under the ground here because this is the path where everyone walks. It doesn't want to be trampled. So it will make a sacrifice for a short stint, take a dive under the earth, and then it will pop back out where the soil is loamy and good, and it will extend itself up just like it did on the other tree. I don't know how it happened. It doesn't seem to have wrapped itself around, and that's one of the mysteries of life. You don't know how people get to where they are, but they do. That's the power of faith. It's the idea that you've already become it. You see? To this vine, it knew nothing else other than I extend. And I suspend myself. And if I get cut, this whole system changes. You come by with a machete one day. You say, I am thirsty. I need to drink water. You cut into this, and you start to drink. It nourishes you. What happens to this? Its extension? It dies. But the rest of this, it comes to life again in a whole new way. Starts to send out shoots in different directions. And they penetrate the earth, searching for more resources. While at the same time, it doesn't take its aliveness for granted, not like before. While it's sending out these shoots, it is vegetative, sending out beautiful new vines filled with big fat leaves, and those big fat leaves are absorbing sunlight. Before you know it, there'll be the cluster formation of grapes. Because it knows if it forms a cluster, then it can drop infinite amounts of itself into the earth to assure that even if things were to be cut off, there'll always be a way. As Jeff Goldblum says, poignantly in Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, as filmed by Steven Spielberg, he says, life always finds a way. Always. Care Bear says, that's beautiful. Not as beautiful as you, Care Bear. Bhati Sab Official invites me to co-host. Thank you for the invite. I'm turning off invitations for the day. Paola, thank you for following. Alaskan Smoke Signals, you too. Come on, Spring, says Lori Hop. That's an awesome comment. I want to pin that. Come on, Spring. What's really funny about that is that spring can mean spring forth, right? It can also mean a source. Shreem, thanks for following. Haha, Holmes says, Zak Ahmed. Beck says, deadwoods are so pretty. They are amazing. Chickadees are singing. We'll listen to them in a minute. Rachel Thibault, thanks for following. Gotti says, in caps, hug a tree right now. Ask twice. Gotti, I can assume that you have an imagination like everyone else, that you are not some alien from another planet who is jealous of us for having the imagination. You have your own, and you can step into that kingdom where there are trees being hugged, even whilst I'm doing what seems to be the opposite. You can imagine me hugging 1,000,000 trees at once. That's what's beautiful about it. And then you won't be trespassing on my delivery of the things that I want to pay attention to. Isn't that lovely? It's a little lesson on trespassing in 30 seconds. Kingdom Who says, Sakana, I know. The truth is not a conspiracy says, yes, definitely hug a tree. I can see people imagining me hugging a tree, and I know that it's really going to work. It's going to influence me. You're going to influence the influencer. You know what? I've never hugged this tree right here. This one right here. I'm going to show it to you. I am a tree. I am Groot. This one right here. See? It's made it this far for this long. It's got ancestors. Actually, that one's more like a cousin because that's like dark birch. And I don't know what this one is until it sprouts. It's new life because it's decidedly dead right now. I mean, temporarily dead. In hibernation, I should say. Okay, I'm going to hug it. And there goes my walking stick. You see, that's your fault. See? There we go. Hello, friend. This was a request. I chose you. I want you to know that. You've been chosen by the vagabond. You have beautiful moss growing. I bet you there are tardigrades there. Yes, I bet you have tardigrades right there. If I were to look carefully enough, I bet you I could see them. I bet you I could see those little water bears right there. Ooh, that looks like a beautiful little star sequence. Look at all the magic unfolding before us. If we didn't pay attention to it, it would not show itself in such ways. Sueru says, beautiful. Morgan, thanks for the love. I am still, in a way, embracing this tree, just in case you are wondering. I have my vice grips around it. And I'm feeling a lot of electrons being released. Yeah, look at that. It's like little star patterns. You know, just the other day, I saw this collaboration invite from a company who wanted to send me a macro lens for my iPhone. Had I accepted, I would have the macro lens now, and we would be looking at tardigrades, i.e. water bears. Look at that blossom. Look at that bloom in the background. I see a face in the wood. If you look carefully, you will see all sorts of expressions. Once again, these are eukaryotic life forms with the aliveness of God's grace flowing through. You'll see all sorts of things. As long as you pay attention to the now, they reveal themselves. Sueru says, I feel it from you. Thank you. You are welcome, Sueru. Fifi, thank you for following. Jane is at the Grand Canyon. I am living vicariously through Jane Bender, the identity. Does that equal a hug for everyone? I pray so. Thanks for the love. We're at 16,000 feet above sea level. Hello, walking stick. I did not mean to drop you. Sure, I know you. I know you well enough by now. You Neanderthal. That's an I. Speaking of stories, you can see how I've walked thousands of miles with this beautiful stick. It's filled now and embedded with all of my oils. And it's been worn down. There's a nice cliff walk. You can see a cliff walk. In fact, let's do this. Right against our beautiful birch tree. I'll show you the cliff walk that is my walking stick. A story within a story. Let's get to it. The story begins in some faraway canyon. The birth of aliveness through water, flowing upward and finding itself free. Waves and waves of flowing water with stones poking through. If you were to follow this trail, like Jump King through the treacherous, perilous platforms, you would find yourself jumping back and forth until finally reaching a place of respite, a checkpoint, as it were, here in the mouth of a tiny cave. All the while, a big giant who lumbers is grasping this every day, placing more pictures and aliveness through the great chipping away of time and space. This is the cliff walk, here in the middle of nowhere land. If you were to walk out of your cave, you would find yourself at the pinnacle looking down at all of that water that once was your habitat. And the sun coming in its golden hour, shedding light upon the entire scene. More water, more pathways, more creatures and things, cave entries and stepways and stories upon stories. The endless expression of aliveness before you. Rendering itself in real time, the eyes of a creature staring back at you. Do you see them? Do you see the eyes staring back at you from the face wall? Do you see them now? Do you see the nose and the mouth of this Disney character? Do you see it yet? It's looking at you with wonderment, wondering how it is that it was discovered on this day. Wants to turn away so as not to be seen any longer. Happy enough just having the greeting of a man's hand every day. And now it's exposed. Not for so long as to become uncomfortable, though. Care Bear sees it. Michelle Sparkles says, I just joined your channel yesterday. May I ask where you are? Yes. Go ahead, you can ask. That's a joke. I'm in Connecticut. I assume that you wanted the answer. And here is a blossoming of light shining through, and the cracks of stones against a mountain wall. And this would be an eye if it weren't a cave first, since we're looking so close, and that is how it works. The closer you get to something, the more it appears to be simply a portal to more story. Michelle says, fantastic. Love the jokes. I'm in Wyoming. Welcome. That is a cave entry now. So what happens if we place ourselves at a distance to the cave? What does it become to you now? Sound. What does it become to you now? Can you pick out the nose of a fox, lightly illuminated, its eyes set in a peering fashion? Or do you see something else? Do you see another eye down below? Or perhaps another, even further down? Does this ever end? Where's the beginning of this? Where does the picture start? Where does it complete itself? This is an example of God's manifold expression. No beginning, no end. It exists so long as you entertain it. Entertain it not, and it just becomes like anything else, just a walking stick. One that we'll never pay attention to, like anything else. But I'll tell you, the stick is alive, now that it's had so much attention given to it. I feel the calling of a stream today. Let's go. Michelle says, it's a beauty. I am very happy with this walking stick. I've had a lot of time with it. I was sad with the last one. I broke it trying to slice through a bunch of overgrowth. I was doing it with a bit too much fervor, and it snapped against a hard stump, and it saddened me. I mentioned before, last time I talked about my first walking stick, that it taught me not to swing so hard at things with such carelessness. You'd end up losing something that you really love. So when we look at the walking stick, we are receiving. By giving our light to it, we receive it. Anything that you look at, you're giving your light to, you're giving your aliveness to it. We have a currency of life. This currency of life, which I speak about in this place more than any other, because it serves as a rhythmic marker of understanding. I talk about adenosine triphosphate here more than other areas in the woods, because the life principle functions in rhythm. It has rhythmic patterns, coming and going, beginning and ending, cycling. So every time we think, when we are using our aliveness, we are in fact spending currency. We are spending aliveness in the form of electromagnetism. And this currency, adenosine triphosphate, is created by a printing press that exists inside the body and our cells. The system itself, very innovative. It needs oxygen from the breath, and from the water we drink. It needs mitochondria, which serve as the furnaces or the power plants of the body. It needs electrons, negatively charged. And they flow from the antennae of this tree. Just as this life form is here, feeding off of this tree, it also requires electrons for its own system of energy, its own currency. Electrons provide currency. Protons act as an attractive element, masculine and deciding. The electron is simply seeking its receipt by something. Could be anything. Doesn't discriminate. It just wants to bond. It wants to receive and bond. So the electron transport chain, so think of it like a firework chain of explosive elements. Oxygen is involved. Glucose from the food we eat gets converted through the mitochondria in our body, which are like little power plants, like power stations or printing presses, printing out to no end unbelievable sources of energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate. And every time we think, we are using this currency for life experience. That's the exchange. Your thoughts are spending money. That money and how much you have and how rich you are with it depends on how you spend and create your currency. So now it becomes, how do I become rich in this currency of life? Because if I become rich in mind, I become rich in body. Well, let me tell you what spends a lot of money. We spend an incredible amount of adenosine triphosphate anytime we use aliveness, the imagination, to create constructs of time. Let me try to explain to you what this looks like for the body. You, as the infinite source of creation, consciousness, decide as a discerning being through your masculine principles. You decide you want to use infinite source to spend money on a situation that no longer exists, i.e. the past. No longer exists. At one point in time, it had existed as a now moment, yet no longer does. And you want it. You want to access it. You want to go to it. And you want to relive it. However you do. In most cases, the individuals who visit this past, as it were, that which is already passed by, we want to go back, not only to relive a situation as if it is static and cannot be rewritten, but we want to live it as intensely as we once did when it occurred in the eternal now. Think about how much energy and currency it would require for any human being who wanted to have the perfect birthday party to go back to that moment, rent out the space, create the space, put in all the old characters, all the old dialogue, all the items within, put them in that, and then have arguments with them, and have horrible feelings rushing through every single cell and iota in the body, registering it to believe that it is actually happening again. How much energy and resources it would require would be like building your own personal torture chamber. Meanwhile, we are using the infinite source of creation to create a situation that has already existed and, in truth, no longer does. Not only must we create this using our currency, but we have to sustain it in order for it to be believed and felt in the body. So it has to be created, and then it has to be sustained. And how many times do we revisit these scenes? How many times do we go back and feel absolute dread and sickness? How many times do we invite other people in? Let me tell you a bit about this story. Oh, tell me about that story again. Because that person then has to use their currency to render their own torture chamber, to experience yours with you. And before you know it, all that extra money, that adenosine triphosphate that otherwise would be readily available, seems to be consumed for a total illusion and nothing more. And that is just the past. Just the past. You want your turtleneck back. You see? It's a life situation. Sluggin knows what is a want versus what is not wanted. To get something back that we once had, we have to either use the imagination to construct it for its revisit, or we do what the sane person would do, that the rest of the world would believe is insane. You decide to use the now, since it's free and on tap, to access the perfect rendition of that turtleneck and to live in it, so that the aliveness can feed it for you without having to do a damn thing. That's a proper use of life currency. But we find ourselves feeling that if we cannot be in the past, if we cannot relive this, then there will be such a hole in our existence now, we wouldn't know how to fill it. We've built ourselves up to be this identity as victims, subjected to difficulties, that are seemingly impossible to overcome and have been thrust upon us, that to give up that story would be a true death and a betrayal to who we are as beings. The only issue with this is that it's constantly filled with pain remembrances that embed themselves in the cells of our body, which only exist to serve us in love. We place our bodies in these torture chambers without listening to the cells or giving them a chance to explain what comes from this. Instead, they simply show us the wasteland in the form of illness and otherwise disastrous problems. At that point, it could be too late. The messages had been sent long ago. That's why I'm here, so that you can come in contact with the source, not as a stone in it, as beautiful as some of these stones are, and I know you're seeing them like I do. The rock hounds of this world. You see this stone staring at you from a mile away and want to see it more. You want to inspect it. Turn it upside down and see it for its truth. Look at its layers and expressions. It's almost like it's teasing us. So you can't eliminate desire to want to play with this world. And because you can't eliminate that desire, when we find that we can only revisit things through time, we become slaves to that, you see? Because we can't stop being curious, no matter how much the world tells us to. We want to turn those stones. The only issue is if we're not turning stones here in the now, folks, if we're not living from the end, wish fulfilled now, which is sanity, then we are creating constructs of time that do not exist any longer, using our vital energy that is otherwise reserved for us to live wish fulfilled in order to entertain nightmares over and over again. And I'm not saying that's bad, and I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's your choice. Right now, it's your choice. You can be the wish-fulfilled self that you once were, and you can feel regret if you're not that anymore. Or you can live it now and receive it without having to expend energy or currency. You tap into your Federal Reserve System and you make withdrawals. By going into your kingdom, you take ownership over its holdings. But by using the kingdom to create a false one made of sand, you're not stepping into a kingdom. So much as to say, I'm making a withdrawal yet again. I am withdrawing from this kingdom in order to be in an illusion for mere entertainment purposes. Sorry, cells, I've got better places to be. And that's life. Ann Grierson says, love your mind. Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Ann. Yes. Pat D says, can you repeat about nightmares? I don't want to feed nightmares. Absolutely. We'll give it attention just for long enough to shed some light on it. And thank you for following. And Pat, you too. SPCS Construction, thank you for following and for your confirmation of understanding. The truth is not a conspiracy says, I'm so grateful for your wisdom. Definitely was no accident that I found your page. Thank you for saying that. Truth. Okay. Zone Light 7, thanks for following. And thank you, Sluggin, for your encouragement. I love you all. Hello, Boldly. We are family. All is one. So Pat is asking for me to repeat some talk about nightmares. It's essentially, when I say nightmare, I'm making a story out of something. And anytime I make a story out of something, I'm labeling something. So in order to have a label, you have to have a story behind it. And we have a story behind things in order to make sense of things so that we can feel safe from them or with them. But it's one of the two. Either be safe from something at a distance or with a barrier, or we feel safe with something, not exactly with it, still safe, but closer. And so that's why we define things, because this is all stemming from our identity being afraid of dying, if you really look at the truth. And when we start to understand that the identity that is us is in fact a creation made by our aliveness as human, we will start to understand that in order for our identity to even exist as a name, a collection of life experiences and definitions, it must be built through time. So, our life experience, our identity, everything that we know as who we identify as. William Vincent Carleton can only exist through its construction through time. And there is no human being who has a name that does not fall into the category the same way. So whether that's a nightmare or whether it's a good thing is part of the story. What I'm trying to get to is, how can we take control over the identity that we created as divine beings in order to give it the proper discipline and the changes that it is we require for our wish fulfillment. By divine right, it is ours, because we are the managers of this vessel. We are the skippers of this aliveness. We are the first cell that came into existence as our human body. We are the zygote. That is where our soul entered in the form of consciousness, with an intelligence to know how to create mitosis and the cell divisions required for us to be a human body. So we are that. We are that intelligence that is required for there to be mitosis through stem cells. And we are the first stem cell. So the nightmare didn't exist at that point. Whatever life situations we have accumulated and created as important in a story, like pages in a book, we're not there yet. They required us to tap into our infinite power and to construct, through entertainment, a number of sequences that are happening and unfolding in the eternal now, that become labeled as either desirable or undesirable, so that we can be at a proper distance from them in order to feel safe. Because we are born with this desire to survive. The life principle itself seems to feed it. Wants us to thrive, wants us to expand, wants us to grow and to heal. However, for most of us, we get to a point where the pain becomes so unbearable, it becomes like a nightmare just to live in the present moment. So we do everything that we can to effectively escape the present. We can escape the present moment with distractions, with a feed, with binging on whatever it is that we binge upon. Substances can be involved, eating or fasting. But we're not truly satisfied with our recognition of aliveness. It seems to be threatening, and it is threatening to our ego. Our identity is threatened by us being present, because it cannot be there. If you are paying attention to the now, without defining it or labeling it, and you're watching an unfolding, a general unfolding of life, then you are 100% unified with your life principle. It is akin to floating in the beautiful amniotic fluids of your womb when you were a child gestating in your mother. Everything is provided for you. Nothing can be taken away lest it need to be for your proper growth and enjoyment. You have a placental barrier, and this is filtering out the garbage, sending you down an umbilical cord, a portal of life, the coming and going of massive amounts of energy and endorphins for you to enjoy your life experience without any need to intervene on your part. You have this system intact in you. However, it is not physical, nor can it ever be. For if it were to take on physical form, it would have restrictions and limits. It would have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like anything else that is subjected as manifest here, everything has a beginning, middle, and end, including every feeling you ever have in your body, also manifest. So the one thing that isn't subject to that is consciousness. And consciousness for us is presented in an unabridged, infinite form through one source only. That source is the imagination. It is the nation of images in your mind that is the infinite source of creation from which all things stem forth. By unifying with it and communing with it regularly, you are communing not only with an infinite power, but you are coming into something that is transcendent and goes beyond 3 dimensions. It is a 4th dimensional construct, a tesseract of infinite expressions, moving in a way that we cannot perceive through 3D in its entirety, but we do catch glimpses of it. But only through the imagination. Only through the third eye, the seat of the soul that is non-hemispherical and is the truth of your real vision of life, the pineal gland. The pineal gland, for all intents and purposes, is an eye. It has cones and rods. It is light sensitive and embedded in the brain. Non-hemispherical, which means it's not divided. It is whole. And it is the only area of the brain that is whole in that way. Everything else, from the 2 eyes that you have and the hemispheres themselves, divided in a dualistic nature. The only exception being the pineal gland is whole. And it is whole like a pine cone, hence its name. It is a spiraling vortex secreting the most powerful of neurotransmitters. Melatonin for your sleep cycles, serotonin for mood elevation, anandamide for bliss, should you access it, and dimethyltryptamine for the imagination and its projection through the prism of life to give you your life experience before you. This is a hallucination. Very consistent, very smooth, very beautiful. And it's done that way so that we don't question it. We don't want to question it because no one wants to question a game. We want to believe it, and we want to experience it as real. Trust me when I say you are playing a game. And you are the developer. And you are the participant. You are all these things, all wrapped up into one. That's the gift you get. The gift you get for winning earlier on. When you went up against hundreds of millions of competitors racing for the cosmic egg, you made it there, you went through, you won. You were the chosen one, you're the key. You are the Neo of this story. 7.9 billion participants playing this game of life as co-creators. The ultimate game. So it's done intentionally that we get lost in the role, that we believe there's nothing more, whilst at the same time, if we were only pay more attention to how we eat and breathe, we'd know there's something more at work there. That it's not just food goes in and energy comes from it. There's an intelligence at work. Next time you get a cut, you won't be looking at the cut on your finger the same way. You look at it differently as it heals and seals. Start to understand that that's not you as an identity. Maybe you applied some cream, well done. But what decided to absorb that into the skin and distribute nutrients for its sealing and healing? Not you. Nor is it me. Thank God. If it were to be in my hands, how long would I survive? In truth, it would be a very fleeting moment. So the more we come to understand that there is a power at play that goes beyond our collection of life experiences, our ego, our identity, the closer we get to the source of what feeds it. And the closer we get to the source that feeds it, the more it has an influence over our lives. And you may not want that. But I think you do. I think you want to be free from pain. I think you want to be understood and wish fulfilled. Not many people go in playing a video game wanting to lose, wanting to have all of their work erased and for naught. That's called masochism, and there's a place for it. But it's not why most people play games. Most people play games because they want all of the rare drops, all of the legendary items, all of the Easter eggs, all the secrets revealed, all the knowledge and all the story. So long as you love the game enough, you're going to look for those things. All the trophies, all of the achievements. And once you have them all, you hear about somebody else is playing and you want to show them all those things that you've achieved. You want to show them like a child would want to show another. Not to belittle them, but to show them what is possible in this game that is yet to be explored. To show them how. That's why we play, most of us. And then there's a place for those who don't want to play it. It's another game. I call it The Sims. You go to work, you play that game, come home, say hello to your spouse. Maybe you make love, create a child, raise that child, go out to dinner, have a nice meal, make some purchases, buy a few things, have an argument, but not too many. Keep it simple. Because it's comfortable. And once again, there's no judgment coming to that. A comfortable, wish-fulfilled life encompasses a good number of those things I've just mentioned for me. Knowing that I can wake in the morning knowing that I will not lose my home. There's money in the bank. My children are healthy and well. And I have a beautiful spouse who loves me and appreciates who I am. Cares about the things I'm doing and creating. Is perhaps one of the greatest of all wish-fulfilled answers. And so I entertain it regularly. So there's a big part of The Sims that's part of my wish-fulfilled state. So I don't knock it, not for a moment. But I didn't used to be that way. I used to want to play the game that thought poorly of everyone around me. They wanted to be better while pushing others down. Wanted to belittle and mock them even though I was being kind to them to their face. At the same time, I would do good things for my society. pretend to be this righteous man. And then the whole thing dropped out. The whole thing. $1 million home, sports car, job, child. All of it. Wrecked. Gone. It was a fun game when it lasted, while it did. But everything that I dished out, I noticed, started to come back. Like boomerangs. Taking it all away. Started to blame the world. Looking around at it saying, how could this be? I've only been kind. I've only been good. I mean, how much do thoughts really matter? They're not even taken into consideration at that point. For if they were to be taken into consideration, I could see myself in truth, but that won't be the time when you're going through the mourning of losing all those things that once mattered. You'll want to blame the world, and you will. Unless someone comes to you haphazardly on a given day on social media and presents you with the manual to the game of life and how to play it. That you become what you think about. That your thoughts create your reality. And they are the seeds. And the rest that you see unfolding before you, no matter how challenging or difficult or nightmarish, is the result. It's the harvest of all of those seeds. So a point may come where you've had enough of a terrible harvest, your garden saturated with weeds, choking out everything that once mattered. And you may just decide, to hell with this garden, I'm leaving it. I'm discarding it. I'm abandoning it. I'm letting it be. And I'm going to use what little I have left in my mind to imagine something greater. To start over again. To be reborn. Not begotten by man. By all these things outside of me. But one in unity and being. With my childlike self that still remains. Neglected, sure, but still it's here. You become a guardian for that child. You wish to protect that child. You wish to nurture it. Instead of throwing him to the wolves or her to the wolves every day, you start to stand up for yourself, not by fighting or resisting or running, but by going simply elsewhere, a place where you know you can have total control and do, to live perfectly. That's where you go, after all of it's lost. And something happens then. Whether it's a bird flying by or a strange occurrence of words that you hear in sequence, a phone call out of the blue, meaningless to the sender, means everything to you. Because it is synchronistic. A hint to let you know that the story is developing. You've talked to these NPCs a million times. They've said the same damn thing over and over again. You're wondering, where is this key? Where do I move forward? And it's that moment when you're just playing around about how this means nothing. It's never really served you. Serves no purpose, but you're going around anyway, and you stumble over a stone that you never stumbled over before, and the next thing you know, you're seeing the entrance to a cave. Voila. It wouldn't have happened if you hadn't stumbled. Also wouldn't have happened if you weren't paying attention, and it certainly wouldn't have happened if you hadn't given up all those other things that you really wanted to hold on to. That's called coming into being. So, if you know what you don't want, you know what resides in the imagination. It's opposite. And all you have to do, fellow gamer whom I love, is discover the things that you do not like. Anytime your body says no, your mind says no, your cells say no, draw yourself into stillness and escape to your imagination. See before you a brilliant birthday cake. A lot of us like this one. Take a deep breath through your nose, close your eyes, and blow out those candles. And witness the vapor in stillness. Open your eyes and look at your hand before you. Do it. Close your eyes and try to imagine your hand there, extended before you. You can feel it. It's part of you. Open your eyes and look at it again. Your ego's going to hate this exercise because it can't pull you into time right now, and that's the trick. Close your eyes. You open your eyes. You try to see the same thing with your eyes closed, with your eyes open. And the ego cannot partake in this. It cannot participate. Because you're giving it a job to do. It's called, you're not here. Instead of it giving you a job. Remember that notification that came through? You see a lot of people following you. You should probably pay some attention to them. And I'll say yes. And I will in the now. I won't be thinking about the last time I didn't answer the follow or the question and how it led to a pain remembrance. That's what the ego wants. Here comes the rain. Vicky says, I shared this with my granddaughter struggling anxiety. I would love to hear how your granddaughter is, and I'm imagining perfection. JG, thanks for following. Michael Hampu, thank you for following. Pretzel, no, the snow. What did you pin so I can see it? And welcome, Pretzel, good to see you. Be boldly, love, peace says, the karma debts are real. The bottom of life is changing. Point, chose, growth, love, light, love. It's a narrative. And it's all welcome. All narratives are welcome, so long as they are chosen by you, is what I would say. Choose the narrative rather than having it impressed upon you. McDaddy and Sabrina, thank you for following. Queen Crazy, thank you for following. Pat D says, yes, 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 and yes. TJ Davis says, the walking stick is nice. Thank you, Davis. TJ. Grace Tiny Face, thanks for following. Still alive and kicking, I love it. Followed. Donald Lynch is butt dialing messages. That's my interpretation of it, though. I could be wrong. It could be the meaning of life, but I've misinterpreted it. Everyone want to see the meaning of life? It's coming in from Donald Lynch, and here it is. Jaden, thank you for following. I think we're caught up. Yeah, we're caught up. That was a judgment, Donald Lynch, but you know what? I am still human, having a life experience as a character who loves to have these moments, to be sarcastic, and at times troll. I could be totally wrong too, and there are times when he's embarrassed. William Vincent Carlton, of course, the identity that was built by the aliveness that flows through you and me equally. Understanding we're human beings, made in the image and likeness of this infinite intelligence. I'm not just saying these things like parrot-like. They're truths. We are made in the image and likeness of infinite source and creation. Therefore, we have an infinite kingdom that is not of this world, but rather is the creator of this world. This infinite intelligence knows the means and the way to all resolution and answers. It is our senior partner, and it is consciousness in truth. We also have an identity, and it is very important to most of us, and it's still important to me being William. So, why not, through the source of creation, recognize that that is our truth and seniority, and come into being and ownership as the sole proprietor and executor of this beautiful identity that we created? I mean, why not? Why not come into ownership over your identity? Next time the ego says, come and take a look at this thing from the past, you know this person sent you a message. Hold on a second, that doesn't move me as much as I observe I'm alive. I'm actually going to stop right now. I'm actually not going to take a step forward just because I know I own you. You say that to your ego. I own you because I created you. I built you up into a thing. I accepted your string of sounds as my name, and I added life experiences to it by using my infinite power to create sequences of time so I could label myself as you. It was a mistake. It was a mistake. The ego's going, that's narcissism. That's borderline personality disorder. That's disassociation from reality itself. I'm sure you see yourself as better than all these people, X, Y, and Z. Each and every one of those things are stories. And those stories can't exist without using infinite power to create them. No matter how the ego moves on the chessboard, you are the chessboard. No matter how the ego moves on the chessboard, you are the chessboard. You are every game and every move and every piece that has ever existed in every space that has ever been entertained. You are the chessboard. And you are the force that moves every piece in every direction that the law says you can move. And even then, you can clear and topple that table at any moment in time. How does it feel to be the owner of your kingdom? How does it feel to be able to say to yourself, you are king or you are queen of your aliveness? Because you were granted the power of the imagination, no one else, not a single other cell, has access. Nor does the identity that you built as an ego have access. You are king or queen, depending on how you want to identify. How nice is that? We can now move identity politics into a proper place where you can be anything at any time, in any way or shape that you wish. And if you want to be restricted as a peon in that space, you can be that too. My only suggestion, and it is only a suggestion, is that you do not impress such things upon others so as to restrict them in their own kingdom. In other words, don't tell someone that they have to accept that your kingdom is theirs. That's called trespassing. Each one, every human being is given an infinite source to be able to manage it fully so that we never feel lack or envy or any sort of limitations. That's why it's there. So the moment that we try to impress limitations on those around us or the environment, we are committing trespassing. This is why it falls into the 10 Commandments as a bad one to do. And this is why you must love your neighbor as yourself, or else you know not what you do. It is a foolish thing to want to take from others or to see suffering in others at their expense. It's foolish. It's a bully. And it could be your game to be a bully. So I'm going to explain to all the bullies of the world what happens when you bully people with trespassing. I'm going to explain it to you scientifically before the battery dies. Kathy Lincoln says, I've been catching up on YouTube. Numerology was awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy, and blessings to you. Anka, thank you for following and saying you love that. Thank you, Kathy. Care Bear says it's so weird. A couple of my messages disappeared. We're going to get into that now, right now, as a matter of fact. Brittany, thanks for your love. And Shell Kokolulu, thank you for following. I think I got Sabrina and McDaddy before. Really happy to see new folks coming in here. We are talking about consciousness, and right now I'm going to explain what happens when we trespass upon the kingdoms of others, which is to commit any one of the 7 deadly sins or to not adhere to the 10 Commandments, namely having to do with wanting things that other people have by thinking that we are lacking in some way, those things, when in fact we're creating all of them as an infinite source of creation, okay? So, don't get lost, just hang out. It's simple in concept. The imagination knows no bounds. We can all agree. You can go anywhere, you can be anything, you can be anyone, you can do anything. There are no restrictions until you put restrictions upon it through your own will. So you can imagine the imagination not working. You can imagine it not having any sort of validity. You could think of it as childlike, having no power, and you can mock it until the cows come home. And that's your choice. The bottom line here is that if you wanted it to be everything, it certainly is everything, including restriction. Anka says, I just subscribed on YouTube because of the numerology comment. Thank you. It was a good roll we had yesterday. We were talking about numbers. I believe it was yesterday or the day before. These days are blurs. Understanding time isn't much of a part. We are just having life experience, and I love you all. Bapper49, thank you for following, and I want to thank you. It was yesterday, says Lisa Fashionista. Thank you, Lisa. Anka, thank you for subscribing very much. Robin, great to see you again. Thanks for the heart me. So if we understand that the kingdom of heaven is within, and it's the imagination, that it has no restriction, that's subject to no limitations unless we subject those with our own will, then there's no sense in wanting to take anything from anyone. Because whatever we would want to have, we create in the mind of God. Not only that, we're being fed consciousness while also using that consciousness to take from someone else's kingdom in a way that we believe is a permanent removal of their happiness. That's called envy. Okay? So that is theft. It's covetousness. You take someone's spouse, you take their girlfriend, boyfriend, you take their livelihood from them, you take their mobility, you take their life, you take their possessions. Yes, you will experience these things as real because once again, the imagination has no limitations. You can use it to imagine someone being in peril and to live in the glory of watching them suffer. You can do that. Understanding, however, that consciousness has no limits, does not die, it must continue carrying on, having a life experience with that human being who had become a target by you. This is what explains karma through Newton's law. The third law states for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, which means you have a timeline where you are observing someone going through pain, which is illusion, There's no pain in the mind of God. There's just wish fulfillment, healing, goodness, all that. But you're observing it and you're experiencing that. So you're misusing your infinite power, I believe, erroneously. To say erroneously is the same way of saying evil. So evil is error, which is trespassing upon the kingdoms of other human beings. That's evil. It's an error. It's a man-made error. And the reason why I suggest highly not to do it not only comes from the consequences or the backlash that you would receive in this waking life through this law of motion, but also because you have set the person into a timeline. Let's say you take away their life, the worst that you could do. You keep imagining someone being ill, they get sick, they fall down, they get into a situation, they're no longer with you. You no longer perceive them as alive. That individual's ego dies in your timeline, whilst at the same time the life principle carries them into a new timeline. And they are feeding off of the energy that you threw to them, at them. So you're effectively sending one of your own timeline versions of yourself into peril. That comes back to bite you in the ass. How it comes is totally random, at least from my experience. This isn't something to fear as much as it's the game itself. The law works as such. If you're thinking about someone and wanting to take from them and do everything that you can to make them suffer, then they will suffer in this timeline because you have infinite power in that way. If you put enough energy into it and enough currency towards it, it happens. The spell is cast, as it were. But that must be met with an equal and opposite reaction in a timeline that leads to personal suffering. I know this from experience. Cast a lot of spells in my day, and a lot have been cast against me, according to my belief systems. I fell into a world of it. It took away everything. There's not a single thing left from it that is of benefit other than life experience. That's why I'm telling you about it. See people as wish fulfilled. See them as wealthy, fulfilled, happy, healthy, mobile, no matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult it seems, because that actually moves mountains. Huge mountains. This is my timeline. It doesn't have to be your timeline. Your timeline could be, I dish out pain to everyone and it leads to my benefit. Great. Great, you can do that. I'm saying you can do that. Have no consequences. Here's what will happen. You and me will start playing a different game. You'll be playing one game that's about dishing it out. It's like a fighting game, and I'll be playing The Sims, and we'll never be crossing paths again. But our timelines will both exist, and that life situation game will exist the way we desire. But we will not be having exchanges together. That's how it works. So, that's what happens if you take the path of the Sith. You know, eventually you just start to run out of friends. And when you just want a little break, you don't get it. And you keep thinking to yourself, okay, I have to revere everything that's outside of myself as God. And the more I do that, the more my wishes are fulfilled because that's my timeline. That's my story. At the same time, there has to be an equal and opposite reaction. Take from people, you'll be taken from. Hurt people, you'll get hurt. Wish that someone be without, you'll be without. It's simple. Wish for people to have, they will have, and so will you. Wish for people to have mobility, you will have mobility. Wish for people to have freedom, and you will have freedom. Which one do you want? Which one's more valuable to you? That's what this game is about. For most of us, we like to have the instant gratification, and if we have pain that's wound up in the body, we will want to unleash it however we can in a form of projection. So that's the game right now. The challenge is a boss battle between Can I face this with delayed gratification? Can I fall into being through the imagination and be satisfied with that, whilst the distortions of my past are unwinding in a natural way, without my participation? That's the big challenge. It's a huge boss battle. But it's a boss battle that once you know how to win, once you know how the law works, you know you can go right in and speed run it. And why not speed run through the challenges that aren't desirable, so you can get to that good stuff? The stuff that you really came here for. So the way you speed run through your pain remembrances as they are surfacing in the body, you could say it's an active pain body. You can identify this because you're feeling a sense of no in some way. When that no-based situation arrives, strong enough for you to notice it, you have exercised presence. That's the first step in your healing. Good job. Second, you're no longer performing. You're observing your aliveness. You're observing that the pain body is active. And of course, it is a label in some way, but at the same time, you can recognize that you're not performing through it, not reacting the way you used to, not complaining about it, nor bringing in other people to spend your currency unnecessarily on its perpetuation. So it must decline in its intensity and end, because your currency is going into other things, namely the imagination, seeing yourself as wish fulfilled, and everyone else who's involved. Okay, there may be someone who you loathe so much, whom you've truly decided you hate and want nothing to do with, and they keep impressing themselves in your life in some way. This is where you practice an even deeper exercise, and this one was given to me by Eckhart Tolle, and it's quite a good one. You imagine yourself disappearing just while it's happening. So I'm walking on a trail, right? You see me walking on a trail. Suddenly, I decide that it's a no-based situation, active pain body. Now it's just, I'm observing. I'm not a body. I'm not a collection of life experiences. But I am observing God's manifold expression frameworks that's unfolding before me. It shows a progression, but it's really nothing beyond that. Anything beyond that would go too far in definition. And that is a temptation to go into time. Time equals suffering. So instead, you just disappear. If you have to observe, you're observing in spectator mode. That's what this is. You are afloat in spectator mode. No body, no performance, no participation, no label, no rare drops, no legendary items, no temptation. Just spectator. Divine Trophy says, wait, I've heard this before. Yes, and it was right here on this path. If you were tuning in on that day, this is the marker where we discuss as a collective spectator mode. This is the spectator mode marker, where instead of dropping into our one life to live battle royale that sucks, as the circle is closing in, the gas, the fog of war, we're no longer collecting from people's death boxes, quickly rummaging through and collecting as much as we can in health and rare items. We're just spectating from the sky, or perhaps on the ground, but we are not in game. You're checking out. Literally looking at things, checking it out. But you're not defining them, you're not labeling them, and you're certainly not performing in them. This is like an emergency e-brake that you can give yourself. You go into spectator mode whenever a situation is overwhelming. And in doing this, you become present in the eternal now. So you can see people coming and going in the room, the numbers going up or down, numbers going up or down, amount of likes. Could be an image of me. You see chat, but in truth, you're not anything pointing at it, you're not a body, and you're not defining it as good or bad. It's not good or bad. It's nothing. It's life experience unfolding before you. That's all it is. And it will bring you into a place of peace and calm, and from there you can piggyback right over to the imagination. You can step right into the narrow gates because you're in spectator mode and you decide, okay, I'm going to perform again. I'm going to perform again, but this time I'm not going to perform here. I'm going into my ideal state. Whoever I imagine being in my perfect wish-fulfilled state, I'm going there now. So you fall into being. After giving yourself a nice break in spectator mode, you're still exercising presence because there's no distance between you and the wish fulfillment. There's no past and there's no future involved. So you're still present. Just in a different version of yourself, having a life experience that's wish fulfilled. Divine Trophy says, okay, good. AM, thanks for following. Third eye, indeed, yes. This is the statement coming from Divine Trophy. Yes, you are using your third eye in order to access your imagination. It is the seat of the soul, as described by Zhukov and Voltaire. It is the seat where all things come into being, i.e. the imagination. But it is the center of creation. It is a whole area, W-H-O-L-E. It is holistic. It is within you, and it is light sensitive. It is an eye, the pineal gland. And it is the source of your imagination as far as a physical element or interface goes. If there ever was an interface of the imagination, it is the pineal gland. It is where you have your onset of sleep. So anytime you fall asleep, the pineal gland is involved in secreting melatonin. That allows you to have a separation from body into the subconscious in the form of an echo. You sleep. But in effect, you're departing from your body. It heals. Your aliveness comes back in the morning, and you come into a waking life experience again as consciousness. But the pineal gland allows this to happen through the secretion of melatonin. At the same time, all the time, we are secreting dimethyltryptamine, DMT. Is referred to as the spirit molecule. The reason why we're not perceiving any sort of psychedelic entheogenic colors or experiences like that, or perhaps you are if there's a large concentration coming through, is simply because it's reuptaked and it's absorbed into the body nearly instantaneously, and it's done purposefully. If DMT were not to be recycled with any sort of efficiency or immediacy, we would be having very psychedelic, fractal-based experiences, and beyond, we would be out of body. We would be out of body all the time. We want to have a localized experience. Therefore, there's only a certain amount of DMT that is filtering out and being produced through tryptophan, through the pineal gland, until we go to sleep. And when we go to sleep, there's a greater synthesis of DMT through melatonin, which is closely related to DMT. In fact, as you sun gaze and meditate, you will find that there is an upgraded version of DMT that has influences of serotonin, melatonin, and anandamide, which is an endocannabinoid produced by the body naturally. All of these get involved in DMT dump. So you start to have a very powerful, rich, spiritual experience that is largely based in bliss the reduction of pain and its eventual elimination, and you start to experience the detachment from body, okay? But this comes gradually over the course of, for me, it's been 15 years, a gradual separation from ego, okay? All right. SML Lake, thanks for following. Omiyuk says, it blinks a light very quickly, forms animations, and that's how it communicates. There you go. This is basically a description of holographic information, right? This is exactly how a holograph works. You have a two-dimensional surface that is hexagonal, which allows there to be a projection through it, photons or biophotons in conjunction with photons from the sun, project through a two-dimensional surface that is hexagonal, recorded in our DNA, unfolds in protein synthesis equally in a manifold expression. That light gives us the perception of three-dimensional experience. Yep. It's holographic, okay? And this is all coming into being from a unified field through the pineal gland. And that unified field is called consciousness. The imagination is the driving factor of what comes into existence, and that's the gift we're given as human beings. Okay? So yes, that is essentially how consciousness works on a scientific level. In order to have a holographic projection, it has to be recorded on a two-dimensional surface. And in order for it to be based in a perfect 3D structure where anything is possible, the easiest form for that is a cube. Okay? So in order to create a cube from a two-dimensional surface, you have to have a hexagram. Okay? The hexagram itself, when projected through, gives you the 3D construct where you can make whatever it is that you want out of it. It's the strongest structure that you can find in physical reality, is the hexagon, or the hexagram. Okay? There's a reason for it. It's 7 points essentially. You have 6 points which give you all of your sides, and then you have a centered point. That's you. In truth, it's consciousness. It's the unified field. Journey, it's light. Journey, what inspired you to learn about this? This is amazing information. Thank you, Journey. All of these downloads that we're talking about here have come from these woods, walks through them for about 3 years, after doing a boatload of reading in the realm of Paramahansa Yogananda, Krishnamurti, Satya Sai Baba, Meher Baba's God Speaks, and then a whole branch going into New Thought practicing, which includes Neville Goddard's Feeling is the Secret, Out of This World, which talks about the imagination being a fourth dimensional construct, Awakening Imagination by Neville Goddard, The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn, The Word is Your Wand by Florence Scovel Shinn, James Allen's As a Man Thinketh, a lot of New Thought practitioners, which basically accept the fact that our reality is what we become based on how we think. And that ties back to Scripture as well. So you can look into Scripture quite a bit. The kingdom of heaven is within you. You must become like a child in order to enter that kingdom. You must bring forth that from what is within you. You must bring that forth in order for it to save you. We start to get into the etymology of words. Christ meaning the anointed one, that your kingdom of heaven is an anointing of your truth. By coming into the imagination, you are actually receiving your crown and your anointment. You're bathing in the oils of Christ consciousness without limitation. And the result of that is Jesus, which means salvation, Yeshua. Yeshua means salvation. And then, of course, we go into the I am principle. So we start to look into the I am principle, dives into what Neville Goddard speaks about, Joseph Murphy talks about it, and then U.S. Anderson talks about it in Three Magic Words by U.S. Anderson. Talks about this deeply, that the I am is a 3-part prayer, or think of it as a programming language for your life. Every time we use an action verb, or verb which is a word of action, we are in effect using our infinite power through voice, right? I being the infinite imagination or infinite intelligence, A being the active choosing principle, the seeds that we plant in the womb of creation, and M being the maternal matrix, matrix being womb in Latin, that which receives our choices and expresses them in our physical reality. And then we also talk about epigenetics, right? We have to go into the body to understand the kingdom of heaven. It's not outside of us and it's not of this world. This is an illusion. So we have to understand this by coming into being as consciousness. And the way we do this is we study epigenetics by Dr. Bruce Lipton. Look into his studies since the 1960s about how cellular structures automatically repair themselves when removed from any sort of environmental hazard. He put a bunch of stem cells that he took from amniotic fluid, placed them in petri dishes and put them under stress in different scenarios. And what he found was they would all get sick until he removed them from their environment, and then they improved on their own. Didn't require any intervention or medicine from the outside world, as it were, other than a change of environment. And what he came to understand beyond that, which is now being studied by Dr. Joe Dispenza quite extensively, thousands and thousands of people going to his studies and seeing actual physical changes happen, is that through epigenetics, when you think of yourself as living from the end, stepping into your kingdom through the imagination, the cells in your body perceive this as an environmental change that is physical. And thus, if you see yourself in health, your cells follow suit and perceive this as well. So all of these things that we're talking about and much, much more, all have come from a collection over years. I think of the movie Gran Torino by Clint Eastwood. This guy, he brings in the boy who's Hmong. He brings him into his workshop in his garage where he's got his car. And he's showing him all of his tools. And he's like, you got all these? He's like, I've collected them over years and years of time and effort and buying one thing at a time and appreciating it, using it, learning it. But this is essentially how all of these things are coming to you now. You don't have to do that hard work. I give you a few shortcuts here and there. And you take what is best for you and build your own tool shed. But ultimately, you shed yourself. You shed all the pain that ever once was built into those cells by giving them vacation. And we go on vacation every day in the woods. Just as I've been doing this for years for myself, I'm now offering it to people for free because it's correct. It would be selfish for me to have this for myself. Thank you for asking that question. Star 13, thanks for following. Journey says, grateful for your talk today. I'm grateful for your presence here. We are one. This is a beautiful one right here. Coming in from Oakley, says, I am a powerful co-creator of my life. Indeed you are, Oakley, and you are in your power, in truth. And your identity is listening. Not even going to try with you. It's just accepting whatever it is you desire now as the creator of your life experience. Deaf Phoenician, thanks for sharing. Yep, Omiuk says it goes in the body and heals everything. When you go into your imagination, you are effectively stepping in as the mind of God. Since you've come from one cell and every cell in your body is a result of that, it has the intelligence for its repair. The only issue is it doesn't repair well or at all if we interfere from the outside world. It's the same as epigenetics. If we are giving it a stressful environment, which is anything but leaving it alone, then it's not going to do as well. And the more we interfere, the worse it becomes. So that's why I tell people surrender is not about saying to some situation you don't like, I'm going to fight you to the death or I'm going to run from you, which I demonstrated earlier, walking away from people. It's just, you're not here. We go into spectator mode, just like this, no longer in a body, but observing aliveness without definition or label. This is a loading screen. So think of Assassin's Creed, you're loading your screen before you start to play the level that's rendered before you, and it renders. Whatever that stage is that's rendering is what you create on the fly. You're literally laying down the pavement and driving it at the same time. So you decide. When you're in the imagination, there's no delay. So you can instantaneously lay out your foundation for wish fulfillment. There's no delay or any sort of obstruction unless you willingly make it. That's why it's so powerful. And this is why it is your kingdom. Okay? We come back here, we're into our performance. This is basically us debugging. So we're in debug mode right now. When we're in the body, we're trying to figure out, how is the manifestation coming forth? How is it unfolding before me? And I'm certainly not a victim of this because it's the game that I made for myself. So let me see how things are working here. How do I feel? Am I good? Yeah, I feel pretty good. Do I need to make adjustments? Does this hurt too much? I feel a lot of pain. Oh, I don't want to feel this pain. I'm getting burned by this. I don't want to feel this pain. So when you don't want that, when it's too overwhelming, you just go into spectator mode, and you can facilitate this through mindful breathing. So we come into spirit. Spiritus in Latin means breath. So we come into breath by saying, I'm breathing in your mind. I'm breathing out. And you do those cycles, I'm breathing in and breathing out. You do 12 of them or less in a minute, and that turns on your parasympathetic nervous system and introduces relaxation to your body. Scientifically. There's no exception across the board for human. 12 or less, the three-part cycle. I'm breathing in, holding, breathing out. The duration is 12 or less of those in a minute time, and you have activated your parasympathetic nervous system. So your breath is a way to literally hack into peace. That's how you hack into peace. And this is why breath work is adhered to by meditators. They have to do it. Because if you're breathing too fast, in the same light, the opposite happens. You activate your sympathetic nervous system, and now you're in fight or flight, and it's agitation. Doesn't feel good. It's excitement, but it's agitation. And it can't last for long, because the agitation is adrenaline, and it originally existed for you to escape life-threatening situations in the physical world, which are no longer happening. This is when we were running from, mountain lions and lynxes, looking behind our back, trying to escape a situation. At the same time, we got all this inflammation happening in the body to protect the vital organs from being hit by blows. Our blood starts to thin so that if we need to bleed, it doesn't choke out what we need to keep alive. All these systems are designed for us to survive physical trauma. Unfortunately, the trauma has transferred itself to life situations that are predominantly illusion and made in the mind. So we have to figure out a way how to use that for our good now. That's how we overcome pain remembrances. Whereas before it used to be traumatic through physical experiences. And it can be. You can certainly have a lot of physical experiences that are traumatic, but the mental aspect is what most people are, like the primrose path are life situations that are predominantly mental. So it's a whole different game. And so we're just playing the game differently. We're not running from the situation, and we're not fighting it because there's no need to, because it's just illusion. In truth, it's just illusion. Things that we've defined. And this is something that was discovered by those who are being attacked by these things, attacked by these threats in environment. They realized they didn't die, and some of them fell into timelines like, okay, all of these perilous situations, I may have died for other people, but I'm still alive. I am king or queen of this domain. Like, I'm totally king or queen of this domain. I'm still alive. And that was the first king, the first queen, the first inventor, the first leap taker, because they realized that no matter how perilous it got, they were always carried through and they always survived. That belief system became a priority for the life principle. Those genetics are what you have in your body because you're still here. So all of the survival instinct that came from faith exists within every human body in your DNA. We are very highly upgraded DNA source beings. Very, very upgraded. Every single life situation that is threatening has been experienced already, pretty much. And we have all of it flowing through our veins so as to overcome it. To know that we don't have to overcome it. Okay? Shadow work. Humboldt says I'm in a dead timeline. Well, if thinking it makes it so. So this is what I would call like an entheogenic experience, right? If you say to your subconscious mind that you are dead, but you're still being fed aliveness and that it's a timeline, then I mean, that's what's going to unfold, but it's going to be so distorted because it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't fall in line with the life principle, which is constantly expanding and healing and enriching. But it's probably going to create a really trippy ride. Like, tell me about it, man. From a distance. From a distance, you know? But it's totally your right to have that life experience. That's what's beautiful about it. Anyone's belief systems are totally acceptable. In one's individual decision, understanding we all have a kingdom of our own to maintain and nourish, right? Then again, you being in a dead timeline might actually be awesome, and I don't see the truth in that yet, humbled. So you could humble me by telling me, you don't have any more pain, no more suffering. It's amazing. You can be in spectator mode all the time. I haven't felt a single problem with my body, ever. You could say that to me, I'm like, that's pretty entertaining. I want to try that game out. You know what I mean? Humboldt says, spent 35 years in codependency with my mom. Well, I got you beat, buddy. I'm 47 just about, and I still have a certain narrative of codependency with my biological mother, which is on its way out, but all the same, I think I got you beat, buddy. Lacey, thank you for following. At the same time, it's just William Vincent Carlton we're talking about. The poor guy has been through enough things already not to be judged any further, but he is happy to judge himself, as you can see. All the same, he has aliveness flowing through him. And where he goes in his imagination, his mother is wish fulfilled, and so is he, but they're not together. As the rain falls. Trish says, facing pain remembrances trauma is the same as shadow work. I would say so. That's how I would define it, Trish. But if other folks can chime in here, because truthfully, I have never gone to a shadow work workshop or purchased a book, and I know they're quite popular, and I'm not diminishing their power. I would imagine it's ego work, life situation work, the unraveling of pain remembrances. Oakley asks about my thoughts on ayahuasca. This falls in line, Oakley, with what we were discussing before. Unhealthy habits, asks Lena, can we give some insight? Sure, of course, absolutely, Lena. So, thoughts on ayahuasca? It's like this. You're introducing a monoamine oxidase inhibitor to your bloodstream. That's going to reduce the uptake or reuptake or absorption of dimethyltryptamine in your body. At the same time, the plant's extraction is also going to give you an increased dosage of dimethyltryptamine. So as that comes in, your imagination is going to become hyperactive, and you will probably have an out-of-body experience. Most people experience going out of body after enough time because there's simply not enough ego to keep you anchored. At that point in time, it's just pure consciousness that you experience, and it's different for everyone based on your own life decisions. However, it's not something that I recommend to anyone because I'm not a shaman. I believe that you should always be with a shaman. You should be in a protected space where you're cared for. It has a great impact on the physical body. A lot of energy is being moved. Some people vomit, other people have diarrhea. And you're also introducing a monoamine oxidase inhibitor to your body, which can have contraindications with SSRIs and other medications. So I'm not recommending it to anyone, but I can tell you that my experience was profound, and it was a one-time thing, and it happened in Mexico before my son's birth. And it was forever life-changing. It wasn't pleasant, but it was life-changing. In that I started to understand that this is a construct. That was the big reveal. That this is a construct that has fractal design, and so it functions in triangles. And there are layers to it. They get stripped apart. Once you strip away the layers and you go out of body, it becomes very complex in its geometric patterns. Those geometric patterns are indicative of higher dimensional faculties that are part of us, yet they're hard to make sense out of. So it's more of a, like you call a trip. So, because it's hard to make sense of it, it's not a priority. Do you get it? Anything that we can make sense of becomes a priority in our life experience, because that's how the ego stays alive, and that's how we have life experience, is by making sense of things. And so the moment that the frame rate gets super fast and the refresh is crazy, and the light spectrums are unbelievably wild, and we go out of body, and things no longer make sense, and we're hearing people talk in tongues, and people start going reptilian. It can be pretty disturbing for a lot of people to have those experiences because you can't really make sense of it. It's higher dimensional stuff. I pray that answers the question. Trish says, tell us the quickest, most natural way to decalcify the pineal gland. Sorry if you already have. No, it's okay. The first and foremost thing you should do is introduce spring water and eliminate as much fluoride from your diet as possible. So look at your salt. If you're using table salt, it likely has fluoride in it. Okay, most of the stuff that I promote, I talk about on my profile, you're going to see it. It has anything to do with neem, which is an Ayurvedic herb. It helps with stripping away and removing fluoridation from the pineal gland, i.e. calcification. Over time, there's a calcification of the pineal gland that everyone experiences. I believe that part of it is intentional in order for there to be a turn towards meditation, which creates, if you actually close your eyes and you turn your eyes inward, like like this, but you do it comfortably with your eyes closed. You notice if you close your eyes, you can tilt them inward without there being discomfort. You might notice that. As you're doing that, you're actually creating a slight amount of piezoelectric activity through pressure or mechanical stress on the calcite crystals of your pineal gland. It's very slight. What it leads to is the creation of a current. That current excites your cerebrospinal fluid in the cave of Brahman, your third ventricle, also known as the crystal palace. And if you're sun gazing at the same time, receiving a lot of photons, you might even actually experience a slight entheogenic experience in the form of phosphenes. You'll see fractal designs, and you'll also see the resting frequency of the earth pulsing through your body as you're in sync with it. It's about a 4-second cycle, and it's 7.83 hertz. It's the Schumann frequency, and you might experience that as your pineal gland decalcifies and becomes more flexible and more malleable and better in its production of melatonin, serotonin, anandamide, and dimethyltryptamine. The quickest way to get to it is spring water, and then eliminating fluoride from your diet. There are other things that I can't say on this stream, however, but I would suggest that you look into Matt from Create Elevate. Matt from Create Elevate talks all about this stuff, and he gets flagged on TikTok all the time, and he has no problem with it. I do, because I do affiliate marketing here, and I can't have my channel shut down all the time because it will hurt my livelihood. So I am tied to TikTok as an employee in a way, you could say, in that I like to sell products on TikTok that I believe are good at decalcifying the pineal gland and good at increasing your health and your way of living. Anything that has a betterment for your living, I'm promoting. Or anything that I think would be fun to use, I'm promoting. But aside from that, if I go deeper into this for the decalcification of your pineal gland, it usually gets flagged. And that leads to issues with me being able to promote products to you. So I just have to find a middle ground that's good. I think I have. Matt from Create Elevate talks a lot about how to decalcify the pineal gland. Peace, thank you for following. Bam Bam, thanks for following. Maria Bakina, thanks for following. Mr. One, thanks for following. Sue, thanks for following. NV Yoga Mama, thank you for following. Whom else? Matt from Create Elevate, yes, pinned. That's who I would look into. KSS, thank you for following. You're more than welcome, Trish. Omeik, thank you for following. Thanks, Algo. That's awesome. I love that. It's true. Thanks, Algo. The algorithm is really great in that way. So if you go through, you'll see a number of products that I'm promoting. One of them is Neem, Neem. You'll see it in essential oil, cold pressed oil. That is a natural organic insecticide. It is a natural 99.99% effective spermicidal lubricant, antibacterial, antiviral, antimicrobial. I get $1 for its sale, so I'm not doing it for the commissions. I'm doing it for you to come into your reproductive freedom and have power. It's also an abortifacient. Okay? So if you're taking neem in supplement form, which is just an Ayurvedic leaf, and you're taking that for a month, Most men's sperm motility will go down by about 75% to 90% motility decrease. Your sperm count does not decrease significantly. Stop taking it for a month, everything returns, motility and sperm count. Conversely, if you're a female and you're taking this neem in supplement form, by the way, it was totally shadow banned. The moment that I put it out there on my account, it got like 30 views, which it never does. It was totally shut down because pharmaceutical companies and special interests do not want you to learn about this herb. They don't. The moment that you learn about neem, you come into your reproductive freedom. And you can be a man coming into reproductive freedom. That goes against everything in society that has to do with enslaving men for 18 years to pay child support or go to jail. It eliminates the entire system. For $11, you get a 100-day supply. So get yourself $44 worth and you're covered for a year. You're with someone, you're figuring out whether or not you should be making a baby with this person. It's pretty simple. And if you're a female taking this, your eggs won't implant into the fallopian tubes. It won't have implantation. So if you're a female doing that and your partner's doing it and he doesn't have sperm motility and you're using the lubricant as a spermicide, you have covered yourself. You give yourself financial freedom through reproductive freedom. It's a major, major thing. And so since the 60s, females have had access to the pill, but there's tons of contraindications. The pharmaceutical companies admit it now. It messes with your hormones. As long as you're over the age of 18 and you've gone through puberty, then neem is incredible for you. It has no known contraindications. It clears your skin. It removes impurities from your body. It also helps with the return of color to your hair, strengthens your hair follicles, removes bacterial infections, other sorts of baddies, parasitic invasions in your body that don't serve you. Mahatma Gandhi used to eat it religiously every single day. It's very bitter. The leaf itself is extremely astringent. But if you're taking it in supplement form, you're not going to taste that. Okay? Doesn't neem also clean your blood? Yes, it does. What is it? It is called neem. It is an Ayurvedic leaf from the neem tree. So it's been used for thousands of years in India and in Asia. And all of the other things that I've mentioned to you that are its beneficial components are largely overlooked or not talked about in medical circles or journals because it is extremely effective, very cheap. Anyone can even grow it if they want. And so it's not worth promoting because it's something that gives you freedom. Freedom from having to go to the doctors, freedom from having to do child support payments for 18 years because you wanted to have a beautiful lovemaking session once by going out one night. You wanted to have a nice one-night stand and now you have a child. It's one of those things that you don't have to worry about anymore, which is really nice if you're asking me, because if anything is damaged by that, it's the child that is hurt the most. So as far as I'm concerned, it's like a no-brainer. But I've been talking about this for 5 years. I've been writing about it for years, and it seems to just kind of go over everyone's head. And I pray that it finally sinks in that you should have your reproductive freedom at all costs. Otherwise, you're just putting it in the hands of someone else. I'm saying this particularly for men. And I don't expect women to like this, but it makes sense. The moment that a man puts his seed inside you, you have complete and total say over everything that happens. So I would rather have the power to decide when to bring life into this world as a man because of all the freedom that it gives. And, you know, if people are going to be promoting sex everywhere all the time, showing their bodies all the time, everywhere, if you were showing something else, like a drug, we would be addicted to that too. So if it's going to be shown in our face all the time, you know, flaunted and shown as empowerment, then we might as well have some empowerment too. Neem gives you that. But that's just my ego speaking. You know, I know a lot of people, this is a very wild topic. We go deep into it, it can bring up a lot of feelings. But seems like everyone's very, very promiscuous nowadays. Everyone wants to hook up. Females are talking about body count. I never thought this would be ever come into existence, that this day would exist. But females are talking about their body count. Like it's a good thing. It's like, wow, holy moly. Times have changed. It's empowerment. Yeah. Tori says, haha. Mother of the Wild Valley says, do you think vasectomy has an impact on a man's spirituality afterward? Well, it's sterilization. So, if you're sterilizing yourself, it's effectively, aside from you're not taking off your genitals, but it is becoming a eunuch in a number of ways. You can no longer bring life into this world. And I think that, that system of lovemaking for a man is all about expression of life. So, yeah, it's sterilization, It's a form of eugenics, a vasectomy. He can no longer diversify genetics. He can no longer diversify genetics or express life in any other way, Pray that answers. Lady, thank you for following. California Kid the Valley asks, where do you get neem? So you can get neem right from TikTok Shop. If you go through my videos, you have to scroll down quite a bit, but you're going to see a green bottle that says neem on it. You can get the supplement that way. And if you do that, I will receive a commission. I think it's like $1.20 that I get. And I think it costs $11. It's no additional cost for you, for me to get the commission. It comes from the provider, the seller. And it will help me. Spread the word. Get yourself 4 of them so you can have a year's worth. After a month, your sperm motility is going to go down to near zero. Use the lubricant that's also in my profile. Get yourself the spermicidal lubricant, the oil. It's very beneficial for your body. You can use that as a lubricant, and it's spermicidal. After a half an hour, 99.99% of your sperm dies after a half an hour. So it can also be used in that way as a morning after pill. Okay? Just use it as a lubricant. All right? Very helpful. And it's not going to cause any damage. It's actually very good for the biome of the female and for you, because it's antimicrobial, antiviral, antibacterial. So it can actually help in the reduction of STIs and STDs. Okay? All right. The pharmaceutical companies, I'm sure, are going to hate me for this, and the lobbyists are going to hate me for this, but it's what it is. It's how it is. Sorry, pal. All right, we're at 22% battery. 22% battery, we're still good. There was a question coming in on my opinion on psychiatric meds. So let's start by saying I am not a psychiatrist, nor am I a PsyD, but I do understand the Diagnostic Statistical Manual thoroughly. Various iterations and its changes, and I follow the APA, and I'm a psych major with concentrations in nonverbal behavior, temporal psychology, and social facilitation, as well as social psychology. So I have some background in it. Brain and behavior, I used to TA a course at University of Delaware with Dr. Leslie Skeen. So I know a good amount of the brain and the body about it, how it works, the systems. When it comes to psychiatric medications, we're talking about individualized cases. And what I tend to speak to in these cases is most of it is approved by the FDA. So the Food Drug Administration. Can you all hear me? It says my microphone is being used by another app. Hello? If you can hear me, just say yes, William. We can hear you. Thank you, Plans for Life. Great. Thank you so much. I was just fishing for compliments. No, I'm serious. It gave me that. So thank you so much. So every case is individualized when it comes to meeting with a psychiatrist, but the bottom line is this. Most of the medications, if not all, that are approved by the FDA are approved just by looking for a change from placebo. In other words, If they see a difference between sugar pill, it doesn't matter what kind of effect it has on the body or the mind, it's usually approved for circulation. It doesn't talk about dosages. It can be used with children. It can be used with people, adults. The way I feel about all of this is, one, it's impossible to fix someone with medication by masking a life situation. Two, most of the diagnoses, if not all, aside from maybe syphilis and stage 4 development in the brain, has no origin as far as a pathogen in the body causing mental illness. In summary, there is nothing like a worm or a bacterial strain that is the cause of mental illness in accordance to the DSM. And the issue with this is because they're using a medical model through a diagnostic test, which is you have to meet a certain amount of criteria, check off a certain amount of criteria in a list of subjective observable behavior. And if you do, then you are given a diagnosis of a permanent condition for life that cannot be overcome by anything or with anything, thus making you a slave to the disease for the rest of your life. That is based on subjectivity, not anything objectively serving as a pathogen that causes it. So a medical model is you've got COVID in your body and you have symptoms. You're going to lose your smell. You're going to lose your taste. Like, those are symptoms that come from something in the body that causes an issue. That's a pathogen, right? However it comes about, that's how it works. But when it comes to psychiatric diagnoses, psychiatrists are using that formula to say there is something that is causing it, but it's what I observe from outside of you through a checklist in a book that has been registered as everyone who has this degree follows this checklist. And if they meet a certain amount, then I give recommendations that they take these mind-altering substances that are approved by the FDA. That gives you my feeling on it. My feeling on it is I would never put my mind, body, spirituality, or trust in the hands of anyone who believes to know me better than myself, understanding I'm an embodiment of God. By looking at me for 10 minutes and deciding that I had a bad day or I'm masking something or hiding something, I should now be diagnosed with something permanently and placed on medication or in an insane asylum. You know, this is why we have issues with psychiatry, is because it's predominantly subjective. And I've only met, on one hand, doctors that fall into the category of how can we taper off these children or adults from these psychotropic medications that are causing changes in behavior. I've only met a few. The one who stands out the most is Dr. Frank Ninivaggi from Yale. He is a saint, and he's a groundbreaking psychiatrist in his field. He's one of the only ones I would ever trust. So, there you go. That's my feeling on psychiatric medication. I pray that answers the question. Plans for Life says it's a model for sales. Indeed it is. You know, sadly, if you have a client for life that has to purchase your product at the price that you set in the form of a monopoly through the pharmaceutical companies, then you have a client for life who's coming in and talking about their problems, putting currency into their life situations that are painful to perpetuate them and exacerbate them, and believe that they are mitigated by a medication that's approved by the FDA through change in placebo alone, is pretty sinister. I think it's sinister, but that could just be me. I'd rather give you the answers with freedom. I'd rather have you come here once for 5 minutes and have everything that you need to live a wish-fulfilled life. There could be no greater form of therapy as far as I'm concerned. The amount of impact that has in your life and service is profound. It goes far and above and beyond anything you could have in the form of a degree or a plan or a diagnostic statistical manual of solutions. But that's just me. User 826-759-615-7279. Thanks for following. Plans for Life asks, can you spell that, lol? Which I said a lot of things. Zone Light says they probably don't look at parasites. Indeed, they don't, Zone Light. That's why I say there are rare exceptions where there's a parasite that leads to a mental condition of disease. Syphilis is the only one that comes to mind. Maybe, it's like, yeah, syphilis is the only one. Right? It's a worm in the brain, eventually eats away your brain. In stage 4. And that comes from sexual activity. So it's really kind of a life situation more than something that forms in the body naturally, Oops, I sent an invitation to someone erroneously. Please do not accept. I mean that. Faith24, thank you for following. California Kid the Valley says, sounds great. We should be a singer. I Am Goddard says, yes. That was okay. We got back to I can hear you. That's good. Hey Dash, thanks for following. Grand Day Wise Collective says, Cass sends over and heart me. Thank you for that, Cass. Very grateful. Divine Mother's here, says, greetings all. Divine Mother, it's always so good to see you. Manifestation is here. Nice. Follows. Thank you. Well, folks, I think that's going to wrap it for today. You can expect this recording to be on my YouTube tonight. In fact, I start the upload as soon as I see it saved on my phone. So I have to end where I have enough battery for it to stay alive and awake to compile all this beautiful discourse that we've had as beings of God. So know that I love you. I'm so grateful for all the people coming in today. We had a lot of followers come in for the first time. You're always welcome to ask questions, and I'll try my best to answer them for you and recognize your divinity at the same time, to encourage you to come into your power and being, to step into the imagination, live wish fulfilled. So thank you for all of your love. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you for your presence and for the great questions and for the inquiries. Find yourself onto YouTube by going into my link in my bio. You'll see the link there that takes you over to my YouTube page. Give a follow, hit the notification bell. You'll see when these broadcasts are there, and you can catch yourself in the comments section. Cass, thanks for the 85 roses for that brilliant, powerful Uranus energy. That powerful energy. Winifred Below, thank you for following. And we hit 50% of the live goal. Nice. So if no one has any further questions or inquiries, we will be ending this live stream. Dragon S63, thanks for following. All of you beautiful people. Grateful for all the likes. We had 27,500 love bubbles. Make that 27,600 love bubbles sent today. Cass says, have a fabulous day, everyone. I'm going to piggyback on that. I love you all. I seriously love you all. I want you to know how much I value your presence, and I believe in you as a worthy, wish-fulfilled being. If you ever have any concerns with your life, I'm here every day for this reason, to align you with your truth and being as divine power. That's what you are, okay? Zone Light asks, when are you on again? I'll be on tomorrow, sometime between 1 and 2. Today was a bit later because I had to review some products in the kitchen, so I was cooking. But typically I'm on around 1 o'clock. You'll see me live. And you'll always see these broadcasts on YouTube in case you miss something. See you next time, Faith. Thank you for abundance of love and peace sent out by Cass. Zone Light, love you all. You're all amazing human beings. Go care for yourselves. Step into the imagination and live wish fulfilled. Enjoy your time. Blessings, and God bless you all.